Since we're talking about politics, last thing, Mamdani has put forward some new tax proposals.
Okay, let's hear 'em.
Which I'm excited about.
Hold on, I have to pause it there. What idiot says they're excited about paying more in taxes? Like, yay, even more of my money is getting confiscated to pay for illegal aliens and Somali fraudsters. But let's get back into it.
He wants to raise the tax rate for people who make over $1 million.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. It affects, I'm gonna pull up the exact numbers and exact percentage, but I believe it's from 3% to 5%, the tax rate for people in New York City. And he wants to raise the city income tax rate to 5.88% from 3.88% for the roughly 34,000 households that earn more than $1 million per year. He said that a family earning $1 million should pay an additional $20,000 in taxes, the equivalent of, that's a 51% increase. And then the other thing is he's trying to advocate for it at the state level is an increase in what some people call the death tax, inheritance tax, which would raise the rates pretty high for people who are bequeathing things to people. So if you have a house and you were to give it to your kid, you're going to pay a higher tax rate on it.
I don't love that.
I don't like that.
I'm cool.
Some of the dumbest shit you ever heard in your life.
So that is basically a taste of how this entire interaction goes. The man jumping for joy at higher taxes is Mark Lamont, an annoying, race-hustling, fake academic, woke political activist who, unfortunately for him, overplays his hand and assumes these other black men share his limiting belief and internalized victimhood identity. And as you saw from the guy at the end of the clip, he shut down the nonsense immediately. He called it the stupidest shit he's ever heard, which it rightfully is. And so Mark Lamont is forced to spend the rest of this interaction defending his ridiculous and unpopular beliefs, and only digs himself into a deeper hole as more hosts start voicing their disagreements. But let's hear from the guy at the end of that clip explain to Mark Lamont why this is, in fact, the dumbest idea ever.
What he's doing, he's taking the rates from 16%. His proposed new rate is 50%. That's a different level of a jump.
For the inheritance tax?
Yes.
The inheritance
tax. One. And then the
is there
rate.
a cap, pardon me for interrupting, is there a cap on
$7 million, I believe, is
No. The old start of the inheritance tax used to be $7 million.
That's where you start getting
That's where you start to get taxed.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm not mad at that.
He wants to drop it to $750,000.
That's
So if you start taxing New Yorkers at $750,000, for those of us that live in the area, there you can't find a house in the 5 boroughs for $750,000.
You can't find a 1-bedroom apartment.
That's my point. And so now you're starting to impose way more I don't want to call them sanctions, but way more stress on the poor and the middle class that you ran your campaign on uplifting.
So just to clarify, Zohran Mamdani wants to lower the tax exemption from $7 million to $750,000. Simultaneously, he wants to increase the tax rate from 16% all the way to 50%. And as these guys who live in New York just stated, you can't find a 1-bedroom apartment in New York proper for under $750,000. So this isn't taxing the greedy bad billionaires. This is a tax that is coming for every single person in New York City. And the worst part is that applies to the entire estate. So if your parents left you a piece of property, some stocks, a life insurance payout, all of that is now subject to Zohran Mamdani's tax. If you run a small deli in New York City and just so happen to own the building, those two things combined are probably $5 million. So if only the first $750,000 is exempt, even paying a 20 or 30% tax rate on the $4 million taxable value would be anywhere from $800,000 to over $1.2 million. And the family would be forced to liquidate everything for pennies on the dollar just to pay the tax bill. It completely decimates the entire possibility of upward mobility. But Mark Lamont's racist bigotry of low expectations for black people kicks in and says, well, it's actually okay because black people don't own any homes.
Well, we're going to tax all these billionaires. No, you're not.
Yeah, they already are exempt. They know how to play the game.
Right.
So the ones you're going to tax are the
people that don't know how to play the game.
And they don't know how to play the game.
But I think that's why this policy could be useful. Again, the devil's going to be in the details. But also, when I think about the people who are the most affected, people like us, we don't, for example, poor black people, we don't inherit houses. We don't.
It's not true, Mark. Especially now, we are starting to be more on the side of inheriting houses.
We are disproportionately inheriting debt. We're disproportionately inheriting houses that aren't paid off,
Yeah.
we're inherently
Doesn't matter. Still equity in the house. That's still a value. That's still a net value.
This is the inherent problem with delusional, racist, woke ideology painting all black people as penniless, assetless, second-class victims. It's completely disconnected from reality. The left likes to pretend 150 years of civil rights progress never happened, and that we still live in the antebellum South, and white people own everything and black people own nothing. So they push these policies to punish ownership and success, thinking it'll only harm whitey and it'll only help black people. But newsflash, black people do own houses. I know, shocking, right? It's the same racist bigotry of low expectation that made New York's governor say black kids don't know what a computer is. It's the same racist bigotry of low expectations that makes Democrats say we can't have secure elections because black people don't know how to acquire IDs. And their entire party claims to stand for the betterment of black people, but policies like this only hurt the people they're claiming to help by preventing them from ever being able to climb the socioeconomic ladder. Unless you're some business mogul, most normal people climb the socioeconomic hierarchy through processes like inheritance. But you can see the host is getting frustrated with Mark Lamont, and he absolutely snaps on him right here.
The wealth for black people ranks dead last amongst ethnicities in the United States of America. We are last.
Yeah.
So now we are starting to get information based on EYL, like that. We are starting to get information on how to wealth build.
Yeah.
Cool. You may not have all of the vehicles set up to wealth build. But for a majority of people, I'm arguing with you that people own houses. And grandparents own houses and mothers own houses, and they're leaving these houses to their kids. So when you start taxing these people at a high clip, 16% to me is too much.
Yeah, see, that's where we disagree. I'm not disagreeing that grandmothers bequeath houses. I'm simply saying that black people are underrepresented on that list.
I know.
And so because we're underrepresented on that list, I'm actually more interested in how tax revenue could be used to invest in us in ways that can get us to where you want to be. So, education, all the things that help people be able to access houses and things like that. You know what I mean? And social mobility.
And I think that's all theory. I'm a man that practices practicality, and I don't have no faith in Democrats. I don't have no faith in Republicans. I don't have no faith in no politicians to take the money and allocate the money accordingly to us to where we could come up off of it. We haven't seen it ever. So again, if my parents leave me some that I can tangibly touch, I don't want the state taking it.
Smash the like button if you enjoyed that. What you just witnessed was a man who believes in self-sufficiency collide with a man who believes in pure government dependence. One man refuses to wait around for the government to improve his life and would rather take the tangible asset that his parents left him as a stepping stone to building his future. The other man fundamentally believes your life will be better off if the government takes your inheritance and spends it instead of you. I find it so ironic that these woke leftists will complain that white people had a 250-year head start to build generational wealth. But now that black people finally have some assets of their own that they want to pass on to their children for generational wealth, the government wants to seize all of it. Instead of taking that money and sending your kid to private school to get a good quality education, Mark Lamont wants you to give that money to the government so they can pump it into the already broken public school system. Black inner city schools already have the highest spending per pupil in the entire country, yet they consistently have the lowest test scores across the country. But Mark Lamont would know that if his ideology was rooted in reality. It's an imaginary story he told himself to derive moral outrage for a cause that doesn't exist. His entire worldview is predicated on two disastrously false premises. Number one, black people in 2026 are still living in the Jim Crow South. And number two, government actually spends money effectively and will make your life more prosperous. But here's where he makes Mark Lamont actually admit he has no idea what he's even talking about.
But first of all, it's on estates, right?
Estate.
So it's not just on houses. It's on like the estate. So if I have an estate, just to be clear. Just
No,
on
no,
estate.
it's on estate.
So if I have an estate of $5 million, the idea is if I'm leaving that to you, you have to pay taxes on it. It doesn't mean that if it's, because the estate might be valued at $1 million. If I leave you a house for $1 million, I haven't even sold the house. I don't have to cough up $500,000.
Okay.
But I do have to pay taxes on part of it. But to my point, again, like I don't think it's a contradiction to say I'm for poor people or I'm for, even the middle class and saying, I'm going to raise the tax rate on people who are inheriting stuff. I get the idea of wanting to pass wealth on to your children. I get the idea of wanting to share those things. I get it. But I'm not convinced, even in New York, that somebody who inherits, say, a $3 million property right now, or a $3 million estate, whatever it is, shouldn't have to pay some taxes if they're getting $3 million.
You have to pay taxes already.